and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here then just welcome, and I hope that you will stick around. Today I'm out with yet another crochet tutorial, and this time I'm going to teach you how to make this super cute raglan type cardigan. I have shared quite a lot of raglan tutorials already on my channel, but this time we are spicing it up with this cardigan version. And as always, I have made sure that this tutorial is as beginner friendly as possible, so I'm explaining every single stitch and every single step in as much detail as possible. But if you have any questions or need more help, then just feel free to reach out in the comment section below and I will try to help you from there. And if you would like to support my work, you can find written version of this pattern also linked down below, and you're also more than welcome to join my membership here on YouTube just to help me keep on going. But now without further ado, let's jump into it. Here are the materials that I will be using. Here I have some wool blend yarn in two colors, and here are some more specs just in case if you are wondering about this specific brand that I'm using. And of course you would also need a crochet hook. For this project I will be using 5mm hook, and you will also need scissors, as well as it will be handy to have some stitch markers, and in total I suggest to have 4 of them. But now let's get started. So first I will be starting with this blue color, and our first step will be to do a slip knot. And for that I normally just grab my yarn like this, then I twist it to create a cross, and then I just grab it and pull it through this loop to create a knot and a bigger loop. And then we can grab our crochet hook and just adjust the size of this loop so it actually matches our hook. And after that we can proceed further with doing some chains, and in total we will have to do 64 chains. And if you're using the same materials as I am, these chains are basically the same for all sizes that you are creating. But now let's get started, and to do a chain you just have to yarn over and then pull it through the loop that you have on your hook like this, and then just repeat the process until you have done 64 chains in total. And as you are doing these chains, I would also advise already to put in some stitch markers, so we would have to do that here in the first chain that we did in the very beginning like that, and then after that we are doing 20 chains and placing a stitch marker in the 21st, then again doing 20 chains and again placing a stitch marker in the 21st chain. But I will do that and then I will show it to you once I have placed all of them in. And so here I have done all my chains, and I also added in stitch markers. So basically we added them in the first and last stitch, and then in between we had 20 chains, stitch marker, 20 chains, stitch marker, 20 chains. So in total this should give 64 chains. And now that this is done, we can actually proceed further with doing the first row. And actually these stitch markers are basically for noting where we will have to place in corners and where the stitches will be slightly different, or basically where we will have to place in more stitches. And to begin working on the first row we will actually have to chain 3. So 1, 2 and 3. And this chain of 3 is going to count as 1 double crochet, so just keep that in mind, that always when we are chaining 3 it counts as 1 double crochet. And now to proceed further, we basically have to place in 5 stitches inside this stitch marker, but because in the beginning these 3 chains count as a stitch, we just have to add in here 4 more double crochets. So I'm just doing that and adding 4 double crochet stitches in there. So here I already have 1, and if you're not sure about double crochet, you just have to yarn over, then go through this chain, grab yarn and pull it up to have 3 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over again and pull through remaining 2, like that. So here we already have 3 stitches in total, and then we are just proceeding further with adding 2 more, so in total we have 5 like this. So this is how it looks once we have added all of these stitches. And now we can actually remove this stitch marker and place it here inside the middle stitch of these 5 that we just did here. So I'm just placing it in here, and this will basically serve as a reminder during the following row that this is where we have to place in the next corner during that next row. And then once this is done, we are just proceeding further with the following chains that we have here, and we are just adding 1 double crochet inside every single chain. So here I'm just moving further and adding 1 double crochet inside each of them like this. So this is how it looks once I have done a few of them already, and then I'm just continuing doing that until I reach this next stitch marker. So this is where I'm going to meet you back again. And now here I have done all the stitches and I have reached this stitch marker. So in here, as I said, we are now just placing 5 double crochet stitches inside this same space. So I'm just doing that. So here all 5 stitches are done, and just as before we are removing this stitch marker and placing it here inside the middle stitch, which is this 3rd double crochet. So this will again be a reminder that during next row this is where we are placing our corner or 5 double crochet stitches. So now that this is done, we are just moving further with the chains that we have here, and again once we reach the stitch marker, this is where we are going to place 5 double crochets again. So basically just keep on repeating this process and go all the way around until you reach this other side where we have our last chain and final stitch marker. And now here the first row is done and this is how it looks. So now we can basically proceed further with the second row, and starting from second row, process will be slightly different for a while, meaning that we will still be placing corners here inside the stitch markers, or basically 5 double crochet stitches, but also in the beginning and end of each row we will be doing increases, meaning that we will be doing 2 double crochets in the first and in the last stitch, because if we flip it like this, which would basically be the shape of our cardigan once we are wearing it, this is our front, and we want these sides to slightly grow and kind of like start to meet each other. So with adding increases here in the beginning and end of each row, we will slightly or gradually increase the length or width, and eventually they will meet each other. So that is the point of increases. And also, as we will be adding rows, the size of this part will basically grow, and we will have to continue doing that until corners here are able to meet underneath our armpit. So I hope that this makes sense, but now let's proceed further with actually doing this second row. To begin, as always, we would have to chain 3, so 1, 2 and 3, and as I mentioned before, these 3 chains count as a double crochet, and since in the beginning of the row we have to do 2 double crochet stitches, this already counts as 1, so we just only have to add in 1 more here in the first stitch that we have here, and this will count as an increase like this. So here we technically have 2 double crochet stitches, then we are proceeding further with just doing double crochets until we meet this stitch marker, which is already here, and then inside this stitch marker we are again adding 5 double crochet stitches. So I'm just doing that, and then we just have to remember to also add in the stitch marker here inside the middle stitch, so we can just remind ourselves to add 5 double crochets there during the next round. And then again we are just proceeding with adding 1 double crochet inside every stitch until we meet the next stitch marker, and in there we will be again doing 5 double crochet stitches. So the process is quite simple, and then at the end of this row here where we have the last stitch, this is where we will have to do 2 double crochets as an increase. So I'm basically going to meet you there. And now here I am at the end of this second row, and here I have reached the last stitch, which is basically these 3 chains, and since it counts as a double crochet, that is where we are placing our last stitch, and basically we are doing an increase just as we did in the beginning, which means that we just have to do 2 double crochet stitches here inside this last one. So this is 1, and then here is the second one. So now we have increased by 1 stitch again, and if we just place it like this, we can see that we are slowly starting to grow these 2 sides together, which is what we are going for. And basically now we just have to keep on repeating the process that we just did for the second row, and we will just continue doing that until these parts are slowly starting to meet each other, and we will leave approximately 2 to 3 centimeters shoulders, so we also have some part for the hem and buttons and so on. And then we are also continuing to increase until these corners are able to meet each other under our armpit once we are trying this part over our shoulders. So now we are just continuing with repeating the process that we did for the second row. And here I am at the end of this third row, and this is how it looks now. And you can see that these parts are actually growing in size. And here I am at the very end of this row where I'm just placing an increase, and I have basically stopped here just before finishing this second stitch because I'm going to change color. So I just wanted to show you that. So basically, once you are here at this very last yarn over, this is where you can kind of like change your yarn. And for that, I normally just grab my new color, I tie it around the existing yarn that I'm using already like this, and just making a secure knot and then pushing it closer to the hook like this, and just making sure that it's not going to untie. And then we can finish this last stitch, and for that I just grab the new yarn that I just attached and do the last yarn over that I was supposed to do. So now we have not only finished this last stitch, but we have also changed the color, and then you can basically cut off this yarn that you just stopped using because we won't use it for a while. But again, I will reattach it after 3 rows with this new color. But from now on, again, I'm just repeating all the steps that I explained, and I will just meet you back later once I have some progress or update in terms of how my rows are growing, and also if they are meeting each other under my armpit. And here it is, and this is how it looks once we have added 8 rounds in total. And when I try it on, you can see that these corners underneath my armpit are actually able to meet each other. So within this following 9th round, we will actually be connecting these parts together, and I will show you how to do that. But if in your case this is not enough for these corners to meet, you can just keep on adding extra rounds. And also here in the middle, you can see that we have reduced this gap, but I think with one more increase on each side, we will have reached the desired amount that we want to have here. So let's just do it one more time. And so basically now I'm just starting as I would normally do, and just again adding another increase here in the beginning of this row, which I would assume is the last one on each side. And then again, I'm just proceeding further with doing regular stitches until I meet these stitch markers that I have here. And then once I have met them, we will actually connect them together. So I will just meet you there. And so now here I have done my stitches and I have met this stitch marker. And now we just want to connect these corners together. And the way how we will do it is that we will basically just place a double crochet that will go through both of these stitches where we have stitch markers. So let's just do that. I'm just starting to work on my double crochet and going through this space where we have this stitch marker, and then also going through this other space on the other corner. So I'm just going in there like this. And basically we are just going through both stitches and we are just performing a double crochet stitch like this. And in this way we will just connect them both together like that. So now you can see that with this double crochet we have actually merged these two stitches together and it is now connected, and this is also our armhole, and basically this point is underneath our armpit. And then after that we are just proceeding further with again doing double crochet stitches until we reach the corners on the other side, and there I will meet you back again so we can just do it again together. And now that this is done, we can also basically just remove these stitch markers because we won't need them for now, and we can just continue working as is. So this is how it looks once I'm showing you it without the stitch markers. And now we are here on the other side, so let's just do the same thing and let's just perform a double crochet that goes through this space and then also the stitch marker here on the other corner like this, and then we are just doing a double crochet stitch like that. So now also these two corners are connected and we are just proceeding further until we reach this end where I'm going to meet you back again, because we are going to change back the color, and I will also be stopping with the increases. And now here inside the last stitch, I'm just performing the last increase as I mentioned, and since we have done 3 rows with blue, we are now also changing color, so let's just do it in the same way as we did before. So I'm just attaching it here and tying a secure knot and pushing it closer to the hook like that, and then let's just finish this stitch with the new color like this. So now this row is completed, and now starting from this row, since actually these two parts are kind of like close to each other here, and I feel like once we will add the hem inside in the inner part, they will actually be able to meet. So I'm not going to proceed further, but if in your case you feel like you still have quite a big gap, then just feel free to add more rows in here, but for me it will be fine. And now starting from this point, we won't have to do, at least in my case, I won't be doing any increases here in the beginning and end of each row, which basically means that we just have to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and since this chain of 3 counts as a double crochet, we are just turning our work and then right away proceeding further with the next stitch. So basically skipping this first one since we already technically have a stitch inside it, and then going inside the next one, and that is where we are doing our double crochet, and then proceeding further with the next stitches that we have. So basically we just don't have an increase in the beginning of this row, and we are moving further with the following stitches. And now also, since we don't have corners in here, it just means that we have to place 1 double crochet stitch inside everything that we have here. So no more corners, and we are just proceeding with adding 1 double crochet inside every single double crochet from the previous row. And now here I am at the end of this row, so again in the last stitch we are just placing 1 double crochet and not doing any increases. And then after that, again proceeding with the next row, so first chaining 3, which counts as a double crochet, and therefore skipping the first stitch and jumping to the next one, and again proceeding further with just placing 1 double crochet inside every stitch that we have. And basically from now on the process is pretty much repetitive. We just have to keep on adding more rows until we have reached the length that we are going for. So basically just keep on trying on this cardigan that you are crocheting and just check the length if you are happy with it, and if not, then just keep on adding more rows. And here I am done with the body part, and this is how it looks on me once I'm actually trying it on. And at the end I ended up doing 27 rows in total, but of course if you wish, you are more than welcome to do more or less. And here I am at the very last row, and now we can fasten off, and for that I normally just chain 1 like this and then just cut off yarn, which I have done already, and tighten this in a secure knot like this. So now this body part is done, and we can proceed further with the next steps, which would basically be working on these sleeves. And the process for that would be basically pretty much the same or very similar. First we would have to start by attaching yarn, and here we have 2 options. So as you can see, this sleeve might seem a little bit wide for some, but otherwise if you're happy with this width that it has at the moment, you're more than welcome to proceed with it as it is. And for that you would basically just have to attach yarn here in the very middle and then proceed with doing your stitches. But in my case, since I'm also running a little bit low on yarn, I will actually be sewing this part together and then starting to work on this sleeve from like a couple of stitches away from this initial point. And in my case, I think it would make sense that I would be like skipping these stitches that we have here, so kind of like this row seems to be finalized like that, and then attaching yarn here from this point here. I'm grabbing this yarn that I have here, since here I still have 1 more row to do to make it 3 blue rows in total, and then I'm just grabbing this yarn, pulling it through and tying a secure knot to attach it like this. So now it is attached, and basically you could have done this also in here at this point. So that is the same thing that you would have to do. And then I can start working on my stitches. And first I just have to pull up a loop like this and then chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3, and as always this chain of 3 counts as 1 double crochet. And then after that we are proceeding further with doing these stitches that we have and placing 1 double crochet inside every single stitch that we have. And we basically just have to go all the way around here like this until we reach this point where we started. And now here I am done with this row, and I also just changed color just because I have reached these 3 rows here. But now here basically at the very end we can connect this row together, and for that we just have to do a slip stitch here inside the 3rd chain that we have in the very beginning. So for that I'm just going through this chain, then grabbing yarn and pulling it through, and then pulling it through the loop that we already had on our hook like this. So now this row is connected and we can proceed further with the next one. And for that we just have to begin with 3 chains, so 1, 2, and 3, which again count as a double crochet. And then we can turn our work and proceed working on the next row by doing a double crochet stitch inside every single stitch that we have here. So starting from the first one, we are just adding 1 double crochet and then proceeding further with the next stitch and placing a double crochet also in there. And so from now on the process is the same. We just have to keep on adding new rounds and doing new rows and then connecting them together and proceeding further with the next one. And now here I'm done also with this row, so maybe let's just connect it together once more. And here I have completed the last stitch, so now we are just connecting by doing a slip stitch here inside the 3rd chain. So I'm going through this stitch, grabbing yarn and pulling it through and pulling it through the loop like this. So now it's connected and we can proceed further with the next round. So chaining 3, 1, 2, and 3 like this. Then we can turn around and start by doing double crochets inside every single stitch that we have here and proceeding further. And yeah, the same process as before. So you just have to keep on repeating and adding new rounds. And here this part, since I connected this arm together at a later stage, I basically have a hole here. So what we have to do, in case you're doing the same thing as I did, you basically just have to sew this part together so we don't have this hole. And for that you can just use your darning needle or sewing needle, but in my case I will just connect it together by doing slip stitches. And here I'm just turning it on the other side like this, and then I'm just grabbing my yarn and I will first start by attaching it here in the very beginning. So let's say here I'm just going through with my crochet hook and then looping through this yarn like this and attaching it by making a secure knot like that. And then we can pull up a loop like this, chain 1, and proceed with doing slip stitches to connect all of these stitches together. So first I'm just starting by going through this first stitch on one side, then going through the same stitch on the other side like that, then grabbing yarn and pulling it through and pulling it through the loop that I already had on my hook like this, and then just proceeding further with the following stitches and doing the same thing until we are connecting this part together completely. So here I just had 4 stitches in total basically, and now all of them are connected. So you can see that we no longer have this hole and everything is connected together smoothly. And then once that is done, we can just chain 1 like this and then make this loop a little bit longer like that. And then we can grab our scissors, cut off yarn, and as it's cut off, we can just tighten it in a secure knot like this. So now this hole is closed. And if I turn it on the other side, you can see that it is looking nice and smooth, and you cannot really tell that there was anything at all. So this is what you have to do in case you were doing the same thing where you try to do your arms a little bit thinner and not so wide. And now here I have done all the rows for the sleeve, and this is how it looks on me once I'm actually wearing it. And in total I ended up doing 34 rows in total for this one sleeve. And now, without cutting off yarn, I will basically just proceed further with working on the cuff for this same sleeve. And yeah, since I'm not changing color, I will just continue without cutting off yarn. And to begin, for the first row, I will basically just do regular single crochet stitches. And for single crochet, you just have to go through the stitch, grab yarn, pull it up to have 2 loops, then yarn over and pull through both. So for the first row for this cuff, I'm just doing 1 single crochet inside every single stitch and just going all the way around until I reach the beginning where I started. So the same as before, but instead I'm using single crochets. And now here I have gone all the way around and reached the very beginning. So now I'm just connecting the start with the end with the slip stitch, and after that again we will do another round. And in this case, from now on, we are starting to do some decreases to basically tighten this part and make it like more narrow so it actually fits our wrist. And for that I will be doing 2 single crochet stitches and then a decrease. So 1 single crochet, then the second single crochet, and then we are doing a decrease, meaning that we will merge 2 stitches into 1. So I'm going through this first stitch and grabbing a yarn like that and just holding it on my hook, and then right away going through the next stitch and also grabbing yarn and keeping it on my hook. So at this point you should have 3 loops on your hook, and then I'm yarning over and going through all 3 loops like that. So in this way we have merged 2 stitches into 1 and we have decreased by 1 stitch basically. And then after that we are just repeating, so doing 2 single crochets, 1 and then 2, and then again doing a decrease by merging 2 of them into 1 like this. So this is the process that we have to keep on repeating during this round that we are doing just now. And now here I have again gone all the way around, and as you can see we have managed to reduce the width a little bit. And now again we are just connecting this round together by doing a slip stitch here inside the first stitch, and then just chaining 1, turning our work and proceeding with the next round. And for that we will again be doing decreases, but this time we will be doing it on every single stitch, meaning that every time when we will do a stitch we will basically merge 2 of them together. And starting right away with these first 2, I'm already doing a decrease like this, then jumping on the next 2 and also merging those 2 together. So by doing this we will basically just reduce or decrease a lot faster. And now again I have gone all the way around, and as you can see now we have managed to reduce the width here quite a lot, and we can also measure that it actually fits our wrist. And as you can see in my case it fits quite nicely, but if you feel like it is still too loose or perhaps if it's too narrow, you're more than welcome to adjust also like the reduces or decreases that you've done during the previous rows, or perhaps also add an extra row with more decreases. But now that this is done, we can again connect this round together by doing a slip stitch here inside the first stitch that we had. And now we can proceed further with actually working on adding this cuff, and we will try to do kind of like a ribbed effect. But first, to begin, we basically just have to chain or do some chains, and the amount of chains will determine the length of this ribbed part. And in my case I will be doing 6 chains, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 like this. So this will be the length of this ribbed hem or cuff. And now we have to work our way back, and for that again I will just be doing single crochets and going inside, like skipping the last chain that we had, and then going inside each of them and adding 1 single crochet in each stitch or each chain, and in total we should have 5 single crochets. So also when working on all the following rows for this, just remember to count your stitches to make sure that you have 5 of them in total. So here I have done all 5 single crochets, and now we just have to connect this part to the base, and for that we just have to do a slip stitch. So I'm going through this first stitch here and doing a slip stitch to kind of connect it like this. So now it feels more attached, and then we are doing another slip stitch in the next stitch here like this, and in this way we are just proceeding further with the next row that we can do. And first we just have to turn or work like this, and now we are going to work our way back here by also doing single crochets, but this time we will be doing them in the back loops. So I'm just going through this back loop. So instead of going through both loops of this stitch that we have here like that, I'm just going through the back loop, and that will basically be the way how we are creating this ribbed effect. So again, count your stitches along to make sure that you have exactly the same number as before. In my case it is 5, and I'm just making sure that I do that. So here I have 5 stitches like this. If I check on this side, you can slowly start to see that we are kind of like creating this ribbed effect. And now this second row is done. And then to proceed with the third one, we just first have to chain 1 like this. Then again, we are turning our work, so we are able to work our way back. And then again we just have to do single crochets here inside the back loops. So again, I'm starting with this first single crochet and placing another single crochet inside the back loop, and again making sure that I'm placing 5 stitches in total like this. So here I have done already 5 of them, and now I have reached the base here. So we again have to attach it by doing a slip stitch in here like this. So now this is attached, and to proceed working on the next row, we just first have to do another slip stitch in the next stitch like this. So now we can begin, and for that again we are just turning our work and then doing single crochets inside the back loops again. So from now on you basically just have to keep on repeating this second and third row for adding more of them, and just work your way all the way around until you have basically added the rows all the way around. So keep on doing that, and then again I will meet you once we are able to finalize this cuff and connect together first and last row. And here I have done few rows already, and as you can see it already has this stretchy effect since we are doing these rows with kind of like ribbed look. And now here I have gone all the way around, and now this cuff is almost finalized, and this is how it looks. So here you can see I have my first row and also the last row. So now the last step would be really to just connect this together, and you can do that in whatever way you prefer, but I normally just do it with my crochet hook by doing slip stitches. And since this space is a little bit kind of like tight, and also since I want to do my slip stitches in the inner side of this sleeve, I'm just going to turn my work on the other side like this. So just pushing it through and making it on this side like that. And now I'm just going to do some slip stitches back, and since I already know that I will be cutting off yarn, and just to make things easier I will already cut it off now by leaving some tail here, so it is enough for me to actually be able to do all the slip stitches that are needed for myself. So here I have some tail, and now we can begin with just connecting this part together. So first I will be going through this corner that I have here, so one of the first or last stitches from the first row, and then I'm just grabbing this loop and pulling it through just so we can kind of like connect this part together. And then I'm just chaining 1 to begin, and then I'm starting to do slip stitches by going through the corner of this one side, and then also through this first stitch that we have here on the other side. So I'm just going through here, and I will actually be going through again only the back loops, so we are still keeping the same pattern. So I'm just going through the back loop here and then doing a slip stitch so we can properly connect together, and then just repeating the same process also for all the following stitches that we have, just so we can nicely connect this together. And now all of these are connected together, so start and end is closed and we can fasten off. So for that I just chain one and then we can cut off yarn and just tighten in a secure knot like this. So now this cuff is officially done, and here's our sleeve in the full length from start to end, also including the cuff. So now the next step would be that you basically just have to repeat all the same steps also for creating the other sleeve. And here I have also added the other sleeve and the cuff, and this is how it looks on me. And now we can basically proceed further with also adding a hem here at the bottom part of this cardigan. And we will do that in a very similar way as we did for the cuffs, but the only difference would be that actually this time we won't be doing any decreases as we are adding the ribbed part. And first we are just starting by attaching yarn here in the very corner. So I'm just doing that here in the third chain that we have in the very beginning, and then I'm just looping this yarn through and attaching it by making a secure knot like this. And then we just have to pull up a loop and chain one, and for the first row I will basically just do single crochets all the way around until I reach this point here on the other side. So first I'm just starting by placing a single crochet here in the very first stitch, and then proceeding further with the next stitches and adding one single crochet in each of them. So basically just do this and go all the way around this bottom part until you reach this point here. And here I have completed this row of single crochets at the very bottom, and this is how it looks. And now that this is done, we can actually proceed further with adding this ribbed hem at the very bottom, and we will do it in the same way as we did it for the cuffs, so also doing the same length that we have here, so it kind of matches. And first, to begin, we just want to turn our work like this, so we are on this side, and then the next step is to do 6 chains so it matches with the length of the ribbed cuffs, and I'm just doing that. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 like this, but if you wish you can of course make it in a different length. And now just to remind you, we just have to do single crochets all the way back, and first we are skipping this last chain that we have here, and then from the next one we are starting to do single crochets in all chains, and in total we just have to have 5 single crochet stitches like this. So here I have all 5 single crochets done, and then we are just attaching it here at the bottom by doing a slip stitch in the base here, and then to start working on the next row we also have to do another slip stitch in the following stitch like that, and then again we are turning our work, and now we just have to do single crochets also here in the same stitches, but we are doing that in the back loops only. And again, just count along that you do exactly the same amount of stitches as before, so we just have to have 5 single crochets in total. And here I'm just doing that and adding single crochet in all the back loops. So this is our second row for this ribbed hem at the bottom like this. And then once this second row is done, we are again just chaining 1, and then we are turning our work and proceeding with the next row, and again we will just have to do single crochets also in the back loops. So again I'm just starting that and placing 1 single crochet in the back loops of every stitch like this. So here I have all 5 of them ready, and then again we are just attaching it at the base by doing a slip stitch here, and then to proceed with the next row we are again doing a slip stitch there. So these are the 3 rows that we just did, and basically you just again have to keep on repeating row 2 and row 3 until you have gone all the way through this bottom part. So just keep on repeating these rows to basically grow this ribbed hem here, and then I will meet you back at the end. And here is how it looks once the bottom hem is finalized, and as you can see it matches nicely with our cuffs as well. And now that this is done, we can actually proceed further with the next step, which would be to add in here like the hem that would go all the way through this inner border here around the neckline and back on the other side. And for that, here I can already continue from this point where I finished my last row of this bottom hem, but if in your case you finished here, then just cut off yarn and reattach it here at this point. And for this border we will be again doing basic rows of single crochets, and this time we will be going through all the loops. So to get started, first I'm just chaining one, then I'm turning my work again, and then just proceeding with doing single crochets here like this. And wherever we have stitches, we are just going through both loops and placing a single crochet in there like this. So just going through every single stitch and adding one single crochet in there. And then once we will actually reach this like inner part of the body of this cardigan, we will have to do our stitches basically on the sides of the rows. And here I'm already approaching this point. So here, starting from this point, we are just adding stitches on sides of the rows, and for that we will just try to do 1 to 2 single crochets for each row that we have here, since these double crochets are a little bit higher than single crochets if we are comparing. And here I'm just starting here with this space first where we are in between the rows. So I'm just going to add 1 single crochet in there, and then the next will come here on the side of this row like this. Then again the following one I'm placing in between the rows, and then one on the side of the row like this. And I feel like in this way we are distributing these stitches quite evenly, and it doesn't look like it's overcrowded or that it would be stretched out too much. And this is my progress so far. So I have worked on this first row, and I have now reached kind of like this place behind our neck. And here, as you can see, we kind of have this corner that is quite inside here. And to smoothen it out a little bit and to make sure that this border is looking nice also around the neckline in the back, we will actually merge 3 stitches into one here in this space. So basically a 3 single crochet decrease, and I'm just going through this stitch before this corner and pulling up a loop, then going through the corner and also pulling up a loop, and then going through the stitch right after the corner and also pulling up a loop. So we should have 4 loops on our hook, and then yarning over and pulling through all of them. And in this way we are kind of decreasing by 2 single crochets and also smoothing out this corner. And then after that we are just proceeding with regular single crochets, and again we are doing that until we reach this next corner here in the back of our neck, and that is where we are going to do the same with 3 single crochet decreases. And this is how it looks once I have added 1 row of these single crochets all the way around here. And now I am here at this point, and I will actually proceed further with adding 2 more rows of just plain single crochets, and after that we will be able to actually work on adding in buttonholes. And now I'm just starting with the second row. So for that, first I'm just chaining 1 like this, and then turning my work and again placing 1 single crochet inside every single stitch. So I will do 2 more rows of this. So this is my second row, and then I will also add third row following the same process as we just did. And now here I have managed to do all 3 rows for the inner border, and this is how it looks. And now that this is done, we can proceed further with the 4th row here, and during this row we will also place in holes for the buttons. So basically what we have to do now is that we just have to figure out how many buttons we want to have in general. In my case I will be going for 3 buttons, and therefore I have to figure out where I would like these buttonholes to be. So I would be placing 1 around here, then somewhere here, and then another one here or somewhere there. So for that I will just count my stitches to make sure that these buttons will be spread across kind of like evenly on this side. So just let me count my stitches so I can figure it out. And here I have placed in stitch markers for where my buttonholes would be, and as you can see, I tried to spread them out quite evenly. So here I added one in the very bottom, then one here at the top, and then I basically just counted however many stitches I have and placed one here in the very middle, and in between them I have 14 stitches in total. So now when we are proceeding further with working on this row for the following row, for the inner part, we will basically, when we will reach these stitch markers, we will be skipping 2 stitches. So here I'm starting to work on the 4th row, and in the very beginning I'm just doing regular single crochets, and I'm doing that until I reach this very first stitch marker that I have here. And then once I get there, so here I am, I will be skipping this stitch with the stitch marker as well as the following stitch. And for that, first I just have to chain 2, so 1 and 2, and because we did 2 chains, we are also skipping 2 stitches, so 1 and 2. And then in this following one, we are again proceeding further with doing single crochets, and here I'm just placing a couple of them just so you can see the difference. And now that I look back, you can see that here we have basically created a hole, which will be the hole for our button. And this is how you can add in all the buttonholes. And basically now that we will reach the next stitch marker, that is where we will again skip 2 stitches and do 2 chains. And then right after that, again proceeding further with single crochets until we reach the last stitch marker where we will do the same. And here I have added holes for all 3 stitch markers. So here is one, then another one here in the middle, and then we also have here this first one. And then after that we are again just proceeding further with doing single crochets inside every single stitch, and just as before we are just doing or going all the way around until we reach this point, and then we will again start working on a new row and we will be going all the way back. And then I will meet you back here because we will basically have to do stitches here inside this hole. And now here I have gone all the way back, and basically here where we have these buttonholes, this is where we are basically going to place in single crochet stitches. And since we skipped or made 2 chains, we are basically just adding 2 single crochets in this hole. So 1 and 2 like this, and then once that's done we are just proceeding with the next stitches and again adding 1 single crochet on top of every single stitch. So this is how it looks once I have already added 2 single crochet stitches, and you can see that we are having like a nice hole here. And then you just have to repeat the same process also once you reach this point, and then also this last one. And so this is how it looks once all 3 holes are finalized, and with this we have done our 5th row. And then after that it's just left for us to do 2 more rows. So basically just again adding 1 single crochet on top of every single stitch and just repeating that for 2 more rows. So in total we have 7 rows for this inner hem, and that would also place our buttonhole in the middle of this hem. This is how it looks now that I have added all rows, and as I said, you can now see that this buttonhole is exactly in the middle. So now that this is done, we can actually fasten off. And for that I just have to chain 1 like this, then making this loop a little bit longer, and then grabbing our scissors and cutting off yarn, and as it's cut off we can just tighten in a secure knot like this. And now that we have finalized all these rows, we can proceed further with also adding in buttons, and we would just have to make sure that we are adding them exactly in the same position as we have our buttonholes, but here on the other side. So we would just make sure to add them in here, and we would just add them by sewing them in. So just proceed with doing that, and also make sure that you're placing them exactly in the middle here of this hem on the other side. And then once that's done, our very last step would be to weave in all the loose ends that we have here in the inner part of this cardigan, and for that I normally just use my crochet hook, but if you wish you can also use a darning needle or whatever works for you the best. And for that I normally just go through the stitches in the back, and then I just grab this loose end and weave it through the back of this project like this. So that was it from me today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this tutorial is going to be useful for you in case you're planning to make your own raglan crochet cardigan. And if you manage to do so, then please feel free to share your creations with me. I'm always super happy to see what you are creating. And if you did enjoy this video, then please give me a big thumbs up, and if you're new here, then please subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye!